$1,200 stimulus check coming to residents in one state. In another state, they're getting $375 stimulus check. In another state, $25,000 free stimulus to small businesses. And in yet another state, incredible relief for housing, as much as $15 million dedicated to its citizens, announced within just hours. What's going on? Across the country, massive grants are being issued by states that say Congress is taking too long. So we're going to start sending out stimulus checks, rent grants, food grants, hazard pay grants, and business grants. It's all breaking today. Meantime, I'm going to go over how you can get money right now from CARES Act 1, rent, utilities, and more. This is a special recording as Congress tries to battle on a CR. I'm trying to battle on how to get you real money right now. It's a great afternoon, and thank you for joining me on Purple. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is a special recording today of Purple, in which I go over the major announcements from states across the country that said, you know what, Congress is taking too long, so we're sending out stimulus checks. I'll tell you which states have stimulus checks announced today, which states are announcing massive grants in the form of a stimulus check, and where are stimulus being offered across the country that viewers of this channel have gotten no less than $300,000 to date. It's all really incredible. And I thank you for joining me. Please subscribe, because today is a day in which you really want to subscribe. Boy, I'm doing things a little bit differently today. Right after this recording, about 15 minutes after this recording, I'm going to go live on Being a Mitch. And in that recording, I will go over unemployment, UI, PUA, and FPUC, because a lot of you have questions. What's going on to my unemployment with the CR being extending, with the CR potentially passing, and UI being extended in PUA? What does that mean? And how about if my unemployment benefit stopped? Then 50 minutes after that recording, I'm going to have a special new show just for tonight about EIDL. A lot of questions are coming in about EIDL, so I'm going to go live and answer your questions on EIDL Live shortly after Being a Mitch. A lot of developments, and of course, if something else breaks in Washington, I will go live for that as well. All right, in this recording, I have so much to go over. Colorado, California, New Mexico, and several other states have announced major new stimulus checks that are going out. So where are you going to get them? When are you going to get them? How much are they? And what's going on? Meantime, I'll go over how to get incredible sums of money from CARES Act 1, from escalated benefits, and from EIDL. This is money right now. So please subscribe, like this video, and become a part of this community. Let's get to the breaking news. The breaking news as you sit here today is that millions of Americans are looking to Congress to find stimulus, and so are states. And states are saying, you know, enough is enough. We're going to start sending out money of our own. And some states have. And viewers have asked me to go over these states one by one, and then to go over what's happening in individual states that we have learned from Purple Power in the last 2 days that are giving incredible rent grants. Let me go over them right now. Colorado. Colorado has announced that it's issuing a $375 stimulus check to residents who have suffered because of this pandemic. This was announced on Wednesday. All workers are eligible from $25 to $500 a week in unemployment benefits between March and October to get that boost. I just missaid that. Any resident who received unemployment benefits are qualified for that boost, the $375 check. Next, in New Mexico, they just signed a $330 million package that's going out. That $330 million package for New Mexico residents will be broken up as the following. There'll be $100 million in grants for small businesses, $15 million in grants for rent, $5 million in grants for food, and $5 million in stimulus checks. Yes, again, stimulus checks for low-income residents who did not receive a federal stimulus check. Incredible relief. Next, New Mexico will also pay a $1,200 stimulus check to those who are collecting unemployment benefits. This is in addition to the one I just told you about. More than 100,000 workers in the state were receiving unemployment benefits last month, says CNBC. So far we see Colorado is doing a $375 stimulus check. And then we see New Mexico is doing a $1,200 stimulus check and is also sending out stimulus checks to those that never qualified for a stimulus check the first time around. And we're not even done there. In Alaska, they announced in the last few days that they're issuing $20 million of CARES Act 1 money to go to Anchorage to help the businesses. In Maryland, Larry Hogan has announced $19 million for rent grants, and those will be distributed in 17 local jurisdictions. In New York City, they just announced a $35 million fund for no-interest loans to small businesses to get through this pandemic. The loans are up to $100,000. In California, as you saw on this channel detailed yesterday, Gavin Newsom has just announced $500 million in grants being issued to small businesses. And that will amount to up to a $25,000 grant given to small businesses. In other states, there's stuff all across the board. Minnesota is proposing one right this week, says a CNBC report, and also a $500 stimulus check and a 13-week extension of unemployment benefits. Then, earlier this week, I detailed that Hawaii has decided to step up and give additional weeks of unemployment benefits. Hawaii has also issued, apparently, a special debit card that you can use to get free money at local restaurants. And then I believe two other states that viewers have told me about, whose states, which I actually forgot, or have actually extended unemployment benefits further weeks than you originally had. What's important to understand about what's going on here is that states were given an enormous amount of money from the federal government under CARES Act 1. That's $150 billion given to states. Those states had to disperse some money to the cities and the counties, but in some cases they kept the money. And those states are now spending the money because they got to use it or lose it. They only have a few weeks left, and that's why you're seeing this rush, and you're going to see more rush. And that deadline's presumed to be around December 15th. Now, while you may hear this from the federal government, viewers of this channel are starting to learn that there's incredible rent grants being given in cities and states across this country by organizations that are either religious or political, that the Purple Power viewers and Purple Power Live and the volunteers are hearing by the minute. Example, Houston. One religious organization paid a lot of rent grants for viewers of this channel. That Houston rent grant is no longer available because now the city of Houston is stepping up and doing rent grant. In Mississippi, one religious organization or private organization is paying rent grants of this channel's viewers as well. Then in Louisiana, Alabama, since day one of this recording, which I believe was about 14 days ago when I started covering these CARES Act 1 grants, Louisiana and Alabama, private organizations have stepped up and started paying rent grants as well. There's one organization, a private organization, that has been in existence for over 200 years, and that's paying utility grants across the country. It's also giving even space heaters, actual portable heaters for people who can't survive during this pandemic without enough heat. In certain cities and counties, the cities and counties have decided, you know what, the rent grant should be dispersed by a separate housing authority that deals with low-income issues. And so while you may be calling City Hall to look for the rent grant, it's not in City Hall, it's in the city's housing authority. Confusing? Perhaps. Ultimately, the money's there, and it's not often where you think it is. Example, New York. One viewer got a rent grant in the last 2 days from the city of New York, not reaching out to City Hall, reaching out to City Hall, finding nothing there because City Hall went live with their rent grant in July, which I detailed. It's now expired. But somehow realized that it might be at the city's housing authority, National Housing Authority, which deals with low-income issues. And there that person got the rent grant. In Massachusetts, the same examples are occurring. Massachusetts, rent grants were closed, but a viewer got $14,000. In Kentucky, where people have had problems finding rent grants, a person got a private rent grant for themselves in the last 2 days. And Louisiana, the same example, and in Mississippi as well. What's important to understand is that this is sort of working against the grain. We understand that states were given this $150 billion of CARES Act 1 grants, and they're trying to use it right now. But in some cases, you sort of know that LA County had a rent grant program in the summer. We all knew it, and we all know it's closed now. But is anyone else doing rent grants for that same city that is not the city government itself? In most cases, the answer is yes. What's important to understand is that that money is available for you to get right now and won't be available indefinitely. Viewers of this channel have understood that there's 3 ways that you look for this money. First, you look for the city, county, and state housing authority. You call City Hall, you call your county hall, and you call your state housing authority. And you ask, do you have any COVID grants or do you have any rental assistance? Because I'm having problems paying my rent because of the pandemic. Do you have any utility assistance? Because I'm having problems paying utilities because of the pandemic. Then the next group you look to is the utility companies. Nearly every single utility company is paying utility grants. You go to them and you say, do you have any utility assistance programs of having problems paying utilities? I'll take an example of one state. In the state of Missouri, one viewer said that virtually all counties in Missouri have some form of utility assistance programs being offered by the pandemic. But only one county that the viewer knew of, St. Louis County, was doing a rent grant program. So ultimately, rent grants may not be available from your federal or city or county government, but your private is available. But when you turn to the utilities, there's stuff across the board. Now, how much money do you generally get? And what do you need to understand about this? First, you shouldn't take anything out of the equation based upon who you are. So don't presume you shouldn't apply because your rent is $1,100 a month. Don't apply because you presume that people on SSI would not be eligible. There's a lot of presumptions that people sometimes bring to the equation that you shouldn't look for. Also, don't add yourself as a qualifier. If you're calling up City Hall based upon watching this video, don't say, do you have any rent grants based for people who are veterans, who have been veterans for 25 years? And don't add qualifiers to it. Like, do you have anything for this based upon that? No, that's not how they're issued. They're just issued broadly, and that when you see them, you will see the issues at hand. Next, how about business grants, hazard pay grants? In some cases, there are out there, but they're not that common. Next, will you get other grants from the federal government in the next few weeks? And will you get any type of grants from this, the CR, the Congressional Resolution Bill, being drafted and formalized in the next 2 days, potentially? No. PPP looks like it's going to be the only grant program that's going to survive in the current proposal of the CR. And yes, if you're a restaurant owner, want up to $2 million in your bank account as a PPP grant that is indicated in the proposal from Mitch McConnell. So what would come after the holidays? A lot of grants are coming after the holidays. First, $2,400 if you're on SSI and SSDI and Social Security and Railroad benefits. That grant, that stimulus check from Joe Biden will come after the holidays, Joe confirms. It's $200 a month every month all the way up to December 31st of next year, so that's $2,400. Then a 20% increase based upon how much you make. Lifetime, up to 20%. Next, a new benchmark that would raise your benefits annually based upon what it's tied to. That's coming after the holidays. EIDL is coming after the holidays. EIDL is that other business grant program that went live in the spring but then dissipated and hasn't been back since. The deal provisions of EIDL remain uncertain, but it's likely that you'll see 2 EIDLs. You'll see people who never got the $10,000 grant before, never got the remainder of the $10,000 grant before, and those that never even applied before and want to get it now. Next, CDC grant, potentially. The CDC grant is in the HEROES Act, and the HEROES Act called for a grant for frontline workers. Rent grant, yes. Food grant, yes. Joe Biden wants you to have both of those deal provisions. And last night he said, the current thing that's being done in the CR is a down payment. Thereafter, what else would be coming? Hazard pay, absolutely. Joe Biden wants to pay you hazard pay. The deal provisions, we don't know. The eligibility qualifications expected to be more broad than even the HEROES Act. Essential workers, more broad in the definition. But the HEROES Act said, you know what, we're going to pay you based upon your 2020 earnings, 2020 hours, January up to the end of the pandemic, which is presumably June of next year, times $13 an hour, bringing you to no more than $10,000, bam, right in your account. There's a lot of grants out there. Ultimately, what's important to understand is that the volunteers of this channel are absolutely here to help you. The volunteers work for all the states. So if you are in need of looking for rent in Kentucky or looking for rent in Mississippi, don't reach out to a volunteer saying, are you the volunteer for Mississippi? They're volunteers helping viewers across the country. And if you have a success story because of a volunteer or because watching this channel, share the successes with this channel by sending a private message on Lalate or a DM on Instagram saying, I got a rent grant and this is how I got it and this was the city or county I got it from. Because ultimately, your information helps the next viewer as well. Coming up next is 2 surprise recordings for the first time ever. Being a Mitch will be live, in which I go over your UI, your PUA, and your FPUC questions. So bring them. What questions do you have? How much PUA am I going to get under the CR? Will it be retroactive? How about FPUC? What's going to happen? And what will happen to FPUC in January? I'll answer all your questions. Then shortly after that, I'll go live again with your Q&A about EIDL. If you've applied for an EIDL and have questions, bring it. If you've applied for an EIDL and got denied, bring it. If you're looking to understand what EIDL is, bring it. I'll be there to answer your questions and more. As always, stay informed, stay smiling, and save LA for more.